I think I discovered the hardest Pokemon game of all time. Now, you're probably like, Nyx, like, what are you talking about? All of the Pokemon games have the same difficulty in a sense, but some games have their highlights, like Cynthia in Pokemon Platinum, Whitney's Miltank in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, or Elisa's Emolga in Pokemon Black and White. And of course, there is Pokemon ROM hacks that do make the games purposely harder, but this is a little bit different than your average Pokemon game. As you may or may not already know, my favorite Pokemon games are the Pokemon Ranger games. Previously on the channel, we've played through Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia and Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs. So it's only fitting we go back to the beginning and experience the very first game in the series, where it all started, in Pokemon Ranger. This game is based in the Fiore region. A detail I like to think about is that in Shadows of Almia, while our character stays in Almia, after graduating, Keith, our rival, travels to Fiore. I always like to think about what Keith might have experienced when he was there, since we can see a lot of the region in this game. We start off the game reading a letter, and apparently, we're pretty desperate. We sent 7 letters at least to the ranger base in Ringtown, begging to become a Pokemon Ranger. So the leader of the ranger base ends up sending us a uniform and a ticket to Fall City. So off we go. When we arrive in Fall City, we head to the tourist center and the receptionist tells us, and I quote, "What's with the way you're dressed? You're not really a ranger, are you? It's obvious you've never worn that outfit before." And I literally gasped. I was not expecting that. One of the reasons why I love this series of games is because the dialogue is usually really funny and laid back, but this lady was out to get me. I don't know. We eventually meet up with Spencer, the leader of the ranger base in Windtown, and the one we were sending all the letters to. When we were heading back to the base with him, we notice a Houndoom and a Plusle in trouble. So Spencer gives us our stylus, which is used to share our feelings of friendship with Pokemon, and it gives us the tutorial on how the game works. As you may or may not already know, these games, you draw a lot of circles, and they're known for scratching your DS screens to pieces, so it's pretty straightforward. As you may have seen in the other Ranger games, the Pokemon you are capturing usually have a health bar underneath them that you have to fill up. However, in this game, that doesn't exist at all. So you literally have to circle and circle and circle until the numbers change color. No wonder this game was destroying DS screens. At least with the other games, you could circle a little bit, stop for a second, and then circle to complete the capture, but this game wants you to suffer. You're essentially starting from the beginning every time you lift your pen. When we get to the ranger base in Ringtown, we meet Lunac, a fellow ranger who we often pair up with throughout the game. Our very first mission in this game is to help Larry, a townsfolk who stormed into the ranger base stating that his Pokemon ran away and we needed to go find it. Larry, however, becomes really panicked when he learns that this is our very first mission, and he doesn't really have that much faith in us at all. But I mean, I guess that's understandable. But anyways, we head into Lyra Forest and Larry gives us the worst possible description of his Pokemon ever. I'll give you a minute to guess it. It was a Taillow. We find it and Larry is overjoyed. He's actually nice to us now that we did something for him. And that's our very first mission complete. Some trees in the forest catch fire, so we get the tutorial for target clears, but we're already pros at that. This isn't our first Pokemon Ranger rodeo. Spencer's assigned Lunac and I to go on patrol of the town. The minute we step out of the base, we see Larry's Taillow agitated with the Plusle from the beginning of the game. So we capture them to calm them down, and Plusle ends up becoming our partner Pokemon. How neat! When we return to the base, we update Spencer on what happened, and we see a familiar character that we've seen in the other Ranger games. Professor Hastings! He starts talking about how he has this new invention, the Super Styler prototype, and it's a hush-hush secret, so we don't hear too much about it. Our next mission ends up being to escort Professor Hastings back to Fall City. As we're making our way, we encounter this strange person who introduces themselves as a member of the Go Rock Squad. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? But I wonder from where? The squad reveals that they are here to steal the Super Styler prototype from Professor Hastings. Oh no! They managed to take the prototype and cause a rock slide in between us and the professor. Luckily, we're both okay, and we just make our way around to meet up with him. And then we just continue on to Fall City. Our character is a little upset we weren't able to stop the Go Rock Squad from stealing the Super Styler, but hey, it's like our first day on the job. And Professor Hastings reassures us that everything is okay because we technically did complete our mission anyways. In the Fall City Ranger Base, we meet Joel, the ranger leader here and a good friend and rival of Spencer. He promotes us to Ranger Rank 2. Heck yeah! As we celebrate our rank up, we meet Arya, a ranger from Fall City who is quite arrogant at first and thinks she's just the best. Joel sends his rangers to get more info on the Go Rock squad in the tunnel, and since there's no rangers for the town, he asks us if we can cover patrol. Which is fine, I guess. It's not like I wanted to do anything cool anyways. Here we do 3 little missions back to back. Move a box for a lady so she can get into her apartment, find this lady's 6 skitty, and light up the basement in the research lab. And they were all a piece of cake for us. We meet up with Arya again, and while we're chatting, there is suddenly a lot of rumbling and noise, so we go to check it out, and there was a Machoke attacking the clock tower. Arya wanted to see what we could do, so she just sat back, relaxed, and made us do all of the work. We capture it with ease, and she's semi-impressed, not really. But we inform Joel of what happened, and he ranks us up to Ranger Rank 3. We are just zooming through the ranks. We then get info that the aqueducts are overflowing with sludge. Ugh. And since there's no rangers on hand in Fall City, Joel sends us to go take a look. This is the point in the game where I learned that you need to save at every save point you see. Because if you don't, and you happen to die, you have to start back from the beginning, and it sucks. So life lesson whenever you play this game, save whenever you can. At first, I went through the aqueducts without encountering any Grimer at all, and I was very confused on what I was supposed to be doing in this mission, until I realized that these pools of sludge are kind of spot specific, so if you walked around them, you weren't going to set off the key event for the Grimer. So we make our way around in a loop, encounter Arya who is in the tunnels investigating the Go Rock squad, we clear the sludge out of the waterworks, and on our way out, we get a text message from Joel, who has gotten word that there's reports of a Muck and 2 Grimer in the tunnels. So he adds it to our mission, of course. And fortunately for us, they're right in front of us. So essentially, after dying once and learning my lesson on saving, I captured the 3 Pokemon successfully. And it's mission clear and Ranger Rank 4. Joel receives reports from Spencer that the Go Rock squad was sighted in Summerland and assigns us to investigate. So we end up riding this random guy's Lapras all the way over there and head into the Summerland Ranger base. There we meet Cameron, the leader of Summerland, and you can tell that Summerland isn't as on edge as the other ranger bases. They're pretty relaxed until suddenly one of the rangers comes running in stating that the Go Rock squad has captured his Politoed. We must go save him now. So now it's mission 4, save Percy's Politoed. We head into the Olive Jungle and meet some familiar characters, provided you played the other games first like I did. And they introduce themselves as the Go Rock Quads. Criminal musicians who are the leaders to, you guessed it, the Go Rock Squad. The Go Rock Quads reveal their master plan to us that they are looking for the legendary Pokemon and are in the process of creating the ultimate styler to control and cause chaos in the region of Feyor. They exit dramatically, and then we have to fight a bunch of squad members while going through the jungle to look for Percy's Pokemon. Thanks, Percy! After going deeper into the jungle, we can see the squad member take Politoed into an ancient temple. He sends the Politoed after us, we capture it, free him from the Go Rock squad, and then Percy arrives, eternally grateful that we saved his dear Pokemon, and we head back to the Summerland Ranger base. Cameron promotes us to Ranger Rank 5, halfway through the ranks already, and gives a report of what happened to Professor Hastings. We then get a message from Spencer to return back to Fall City. We meet up with Spencer and head to the Ranger base, and he reveals that the Go Rock squad went back into hiding. And Professor Hastings talks about how they're using their own version of his Super Styler that can control a Pokemon indefinitely. Spencer points out that they do return to normal once you capture it, and we discover that the Go Rock squad stylers aren't perfected just yet. Professor Hastings leaves to think things over, and we get assigned another mission to break all the rocks in the Kraka tunnel that the Go Rock squad created a while back. So mission 5, clear the rock falls. When we enter Kraka tunnel, we meet Arya again. She's already cleared some of the rock falls and makes us get the rest of them because she's just too busy investigating the Go Rock squad. While I'm looking for a Pokemon to break the rocks, we stumble upon the Go Rock Quads again, who are supposedly looking for a legendary Pokemon in the tunnel, They leave, and we continue with our regular mission. I captured a bunch of Hariyamas and made my way through the tunnel, clearing whatever rocks I encountered. After encountering some squad members, we end up having to fight Tiffany from the quads. They seem to have a special instrument like stylers, which is pretty cool but also deadly because she sends a camera up after us, which is a little hard at first, but not too bad, since every time I went to circle it, it just shot out fireballs. Haha. Tiffany runs away and it's mission clear, and we return to the ranger base and get promoted to ranger rank 6. There's like zero concept of time in this game, unlike in Shadows of Almia where it says so much time has passed or you rested. It feels like it's still my very first day on the job and I've already went up 6 ranger ranks, but I imagine it's been anywhere between from a few days to a few months. My 6th ranger mission I get assigned is to find an old man in the woods who has gotten lost. Lunik decides to join us since we haven't seen him in a while, and we find a little girl who lost her Jigglypuff. So Lunik ends up staying with her and we find the Jigglypuff. We return it to her and Lunik ends up taking her home, and we just continue on with our objective. We find the old man in the forest who is just mega grumpy. He introduces himself as Gordor and makes us escort him out of the forest. That was our job originally, but he wasn't very nice about it. We encounter a Go Rock squad member who just runs away at the sight of us, and Gordor talks about how their intentions are possibly misunderstood and might be more useful than the Rangers themselves. And says that I can barely manage my job as it is, as a guide. I should have just left him in the forest. But I didn't, and we get promoted to Ranger Rank 7. Spencer gets a call from Cameron who requests us to go to Summerland immediately. And since we are Ranger Rank 7, we can finally use the Dragonite bus. So we just ride a Dragonite wherever we need to go. That makes it easy. When we catch up with Cameron, he tells us he has a gift for us, and it's a submersible aquamole that's 1000% broken, but it's in the works of getting fixed. Thanks, man. How did you know what I wanted? Lunik arrives and asks about the ancient temple in the jungle, and Cameron says that there is a legend called the 4 Challenges, and rangers used to make an attempt at them just to see how strong they were, but it's not used very often anymore. He made a note to tell us to not complete the 4th challenge because a great calamity will happen. Yay! The challenges here were quite easy. I started off with the water challenge, and the only hard part was getting through the Gyarados because they kept knocking me off the platform. And at the end there was a boss Pokemon to fight, and it was just 2 Kingdras. Easy. The second challenge was the challenge of destruction. It was fairly straightforward. You just had to capture the Pokemon that dropped on you, use them to break the pillars, and then continue on to the end of the little maze. And then at the end you had to capture a Salamence. Now, I think this is the dreaded Salamence I've been hearing a lot of people struggled with, but I captured it quite easy and quickly, and it only hit me once. When I was looking for the 3rd challenge, Lunik and I noticed an Entei statue in the middle, and we weren't really sure what the meaning of it was though. Outside what looks to be the fire challenge, we see some researchers, so we were unable to go through that one and just head on to the next challenge instead. This had wind currents, and we had to walk along a path and try not to get blown off, and once we reached the end, we encountered a Flygon. He was more difficult than Salamence because he kept zooming off the screen, and he flies really fast, but I managed to capture him after dying once. We decided to check out the 4th challenge just to see what it looks like since the researchers are gone, and we encounter the Go Rock quads with the challenge boss Pokemon Charizard. We discovered that Charizard is in pain and agitated, so the only logical thing for us to do is to catch it, and after we capture it, we realized that the Go Rock quads manipulated us and made us capture it on purpose and complete the 4th challenge. The Entei statue has disappeared and nothing seemed to have happened, so the calamity must just be a myth? Until we exited the temple and a giant earthquake happens. Good going, Lunik. I am blaming you for this because you just wanted to look at the 4th challenge. We'd enter the temple again to discover that it's all lava now. And we discover an actual Entei where the statue used to be, so that must be the cause of the earthquake and the lava. Arya arrives and tries to save the day by herself because she hates us, but we follow to try to back her up anyways, and we discover that one of the squad members managed to destroy her styler with a really powerful Pokemon. So, it's up to us even though she has 0 faith in us. We fight Clyde from the Go Rock quads, who has us lacking. Now, he was a bit of a doozy. He hit pretty hard, so I ended up dying. In my second attempt, I used an assist from a Houndoom, who actually extends the length of your capture line for the price of a little bit of your health. So I used that to create big circles and capture the Slacking. We continued on and discovered Gordor, the man who we saved in the forest, who happens to be the head leader for the Go Rock squad. Now, I really regret not leaving him in the forest. We end up having to capture the Entei here, and then Gordor escapes. We meet up with Arya again and all head back to the Summerland base. We're called by Professor Hastings to head back to Fall City and meet up with him. He informs us that the Go Rock squad has been mass producing the copied Super Styler in the Dusk Factory right beside Fall City, so we travel there together to shut them down. We enter the factory and discover it's being powered by Pikachus. So we need to find a Pokemon that can cut it, so then they'll have no power. We fight a lot of Go Rock squad members. While we find the Pikachu generators and set them free, we encounter Garrett of the Go Rock quads, who sends a Scizor at us and runs away after telling us there is no point in shutting down the factory since they've nearly perfected their styler. After saving the Pikachu in the factory, we return to the Fall City Ranger base and get promoted to Ranger rank 8. Joel returns and he tells us that he's discovered where the Go Rock squad's base is, somewhere in the Sekra range, and Spencer's already there searching. We're assigned to provide Spencer with some backup, and there's no way for us to get there. Since apparently the Dragonite bus can't go there, Professor Hastings recalls hearing something about an underwater tunnel that can lead us to the Sekra range somewhere in Summerland. So we head back there to ask Cameron what he might know about it. Cameron says that the underwater tunnel does exist, and this is the perfect chance to try out our brand new gift from Cameron, the Aquamole. It's all fixed up minus just one part that got lost in the forest, so we head to find that, and then the Aquamole is good to go. Once we reach our destination, we get a message saying that the Aquamole only had enough gas for a one-way trip, so there's no going back now. We meet this character named Chris, who doesn't really say much except just to follow him. Entering Panula Cave, we start to be able to feel some tremors. We are met with a Steelix blocking the path, so we have to use a Poliwrath to get him to move. And then we learn that the Steelix is the one causing all of the tremors. We follow Chris until we meet his leader, Alita, who introduces herself as the Ranger of Windtown. She tells us we were unable to reach Windtown due to the Piloswine blocking the way because they were looking for Swinub. She ends up running off with Chris to find the Steelix to help stop the tremors, and then we have to go find the Swinub to return. We find the Swinub through tunnels in the cave, and we have to slide around until we reach the right spot. And then we return him to his family, and they move on. Continuing on the path, we encounter the Steelix once again, and this time we have to capture it. Afterwards, Chris and Alita meet up with us. There's a Go Rock squad member who tells us it was him that angered the Steelix and made him make the tremors. He flees and we all recoup at the Ranger base. We get promoted to Ranger rank 9 and get the mission to meet up with Spencer in the Go Rock squad base. When we enter the Sekra range, we see the Charizard from the Jungle Temple, Arya not too long after, and she states that he is injured still, and Alita has asked her to join forces with us to help calm it down. We chase after the Charizard, capture it, and Arya heals him up and he goes off. Arya goes back to Windtown and we continue on to find the base. As we were climbing the mountain, literally while we were hanging on some vines, we noticed a Go Rock squad member just hop out of a rock, which is actually an elevator. That loser doesn't realize he just exposed his secret entrance to me. As we go through the base fighting grunts, we actually meet up with Lunik again and end up fighting Tiffany, Clyde, and Garrett of the quads. And they inform us that they have finally perfected their power styler and retreat to where Billy is. We enter a new room and Billy says that their boss, Gordor, is currently at Fiora Temple with the power styler literally about to cause chaos and mass destruction. They send their Pokemon at us, and once we capture them, they click a self-destruct button and jump down a hole, just leaving us there. Spencer finally arrives after doing literally nothing and orders us to escape the same way the Go Rock quads went. And he'll stay behind to make sure all of the Pokemon escape safely. So we escape and continue on. We now get promoted to Ranger rank 10. The highest of the ranks. We're on top of the world. And we had to confront Gordor at Fiora Temple. Now, I really had a hard time finding Fiora Temple at first. I really don't know why. I don't know if I just didn't bother to pay attention or what, but I had no idea where I was going, but I eventually did make it. We reach the door of the temple and we're stuck at a standstill because in order to open it, we need a really strong fire move, and after walking around, there was no Pokemon in sight. But luckily for us, Charizard comes to the rescue and opens the gate. We're instantly met with a puzzle, so we have to find our way around this area to catch a Vaporeon, a Flareon, and a Jolteon. To be honest, I had no idea where I was going, but after a lot of trial and error, I finally figured it out and continued on. After that, we end up having to fight 3 Go-Rock Quad members, and holy cow, they were tough. I pushed through and made it to the top of the temple with Gordor. Here we can see the 3 legendary Pokemon that the Go-Rock Squad was looking for this entire time: Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. We really only got to see how they managed to catch Entei, so I think it really would have been interesting if we could have seen how they captured Raikou and Suicune as well. Gordor reveals his plan to let these Pokemon wreak havoc on the region and make the Go-Rock Quads look like the heroes of the day, and make Rangers look like trash, essentially. He just really has it out for us. We end up having to fight each legendary Pokemon one by one. And oh my lord, this, my friends, is what made me almost rage quit this game. This whole fight is the reason why I think this is one of the hardest Pokemon games. Being the first installment of the series, there is going to be its quirks, and I think they really improve with Shadows of Almia, but at this point in the game, you're essentially fighting 6 battles back to back with only the Pokemon you can find in this area, the 3 squad members and then the 3 legendary Pokemon. And since you're unable to take Pokemon out of their natural habitat, there was none around here. I potentially could have went back to the other areas to capture other Pokemon, but I posed the risk of losing some health I already had with no Pokemon to heal me. So it was all down to my circling skills and my trusty partner Plusle. Oh, what would I do without him? He always came in clutch since he could paralyze Pokemon for a few moments. Now, I managed to make it through Raikou and Suicune decently well, but when it came to Entei, I had 5 health and a dream. Plusle and Minun teamed up to break the ultimate power styler, which then freed Entei from Gordor's control and caused him to turn on him. And since we are such great people, we couldn't just let Entei throw Gordor off the top of the temple, even though I wanted to. We had to intervene and capture him to calm him down. I easily spent at least an hour on this fight alone, so many attempts, and it was so difficult since he had fire around him, so you couldn't circle close. But then he also set up these lava pillars, so you couldn't make large circles either. So I had to watch Entei's movements and wait until I could recharge Plusle's ability and just wait for the right moment and circle my absolute heart out. And we did it. Gordor escapes, Spencer arrives and says we did the right thing even though we really didn't want to. And we head home. I was finally done. I completed the base game for Pokemon Ranger, one of my all-time favorite game series, and it felt so great to replay. We end up seeing Gordor running away, only to be stopped by Professor Hastings. Here we learn a little bit about Gordor, why he's the way he is, what made him crack, and want to take over the world. Apparently, Gordor and Professor Hastings were friends, co-workers. Gordor always felt like he was second place when it came to Hastings. They have interest in the same research, but everyone always reacted more to Hastings' research instead, and left Gordor in the dark. Gordor then strived to be better, in any way he could be noticed, so he took the evil route. When Professor Hastings got the job at the Ranger Union, that was when Gordor snapped. He had enough, declared his hatred for Rangers, and became the man that we've seen throughout this game. Which almost makes me feel bad for him, but he was rude to us, so screw him. Professor Hastings even offered him to work beside him at the Ranger Union, and Gordor still refused and continued on to wherever he lives, I guess. The credits roll, and it made me quite sad, honestly, seeing the highlights of all the characters throughout the game. It just filled my heart, and I truly have so much love for these games, and they'll forever hold a special place in my heart. With 6 hours in-game time, which I feel is a record because Google says it takes 10 hours to complete, we can officially say it's mission clear. We completed the hardest, in my opinion, Pokemon game.